In this video, we're going to be talking about how to become an effective communicator, and my guest Marlin is going to join me. Welcome to SGS Insights, where I create a variety of videos. We've got vlogs, we've got a talk show, we've got self-growth videos. Which one of my videos do you think you're about to watch? You've been in the communication sector for a long time, and people really struggle with communication. What are some tools that you found that can enhance people's communication skills?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Before I came to Plymouth State, I ran an advertising, marketing, public relations agency for about 30 years in New York and Boston. So communications is really what my specialty field is. I think when you're talking about communications, people tend to get very nervous sometimes if they have to speak in public, like public communications, standing up before an audience, a presentation, or even in an interview setting, right? It's like it's scary sometimes. So what I tell people who don't do that on a regular basis is really practice. So know what you want to say, right? And practice saying it. Oftentimes, if you're doing an interview like I am right now, or if you're speaking to a large group of people, if you're giving a presentation, practice it with a friend, right? Have somebody sit there and listen to you give the presentation. I think you have to think very carefully about how fast you talk, about how loud you talk. You want to make sure that your audience can hear everything that you're going to say. But getting over that fright, the best way to do it is to do it, right? So if you, every time you speak in public, you're going to get better and better at it. And every time you speak in public, it's going to become a little less scary for you. So I would say practice and do it.
Mm-hmm. And with the anxiety thing too, so I've kind of read that if people maybe say things spontaneously, maybe like they shout very loudly, that can almost kind of help them.
Yeah, so I think you'll come. I think the more you speak in public, the more you're going to come up with your own style, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times, depending on the audience that you're speaking to, asking them questions and having them reply back, that's a nice way to kind of get a little more comfortable with the audience and have them feel like they're a part of the conversation you're having. I think communications in general really needs to be thought of as a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. Whether that's a conversation like you and I are having right now, or it's a conversation that one of us is having with 1,000 people, it still needs to be a conversation. I don't think anyone really enjoys being talked at, right? Mm-hmm. They want to be talked to. They want to know that I'm thinking of what you want me to say and what you're listening to today. And that's the conversational aspect that I think of public speaking that a lot of times people miss, right? That idea that I'm going to have a conversation. Yeah, there's 1,000 people here, or it's on Zoom and I can't actually see anyone. I'm still talking to an individual as opposed to a group. I think that goes a long way towards first of all, making you comfortable, but also making the audience feel like, wow, this person is not just giving a speech, they're telling me something that I want to hear and engage with.
I like that. And also too, like if you're giving a speech and you're very uncomfortable fidgeting, that can also bounce back on the audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, so I think practice is important. Know what you want to say. I also think it's important to know who your audience is, right? So this past Saturday morning, we had an accepted students day. We had about 800 first-year students who have deposited. We hope they're coming this fall to Plymouth State, and their parents were there. So the Silver Center was full. I was welcoming them, and I had a very specific message that I wanted to give them, and I spoke to them knowing who they were. That would be a different presentation I would give if it was 800 members of the faculty mm-hmm. or staff, or if it was the community. I knew that I was talking to 18 and 19-year-olds, their families. They were nervous. They had a big decision to make. So my goal there was to make them feel like this was a community that they might want to be a part of, but also to just let them breathe a little bit. And that might be a very different aspect of how I might speak to a different group. So know your audience as well.
I like that. And also, too, people are going to struggle with this because perhaps you're speaking to a group, correct? And there's this term called the corporate voice, and, mm-hmm. and essentially, you're very tough, rigid. Right. And sometimes, like, it's hard. So should you make jokes of the audience? Should you kind of be yourself? Maybe include, like, personal stories? Mm-hmm. Or
yeah, so thoughts? I always feel like people are listening. So when I speak, or when any of us speak, we have to realize that people are listening to us as a person, right? And so I think the more you can include in whatever it is that you're saying, whether it's a formal speech or just a gathering of people, that you can show who you are and what your experience has been with whatever you're talking about. So for instance, we'll have an entirely different audience in July when our students come for orientation. Those are students who are coming here, their parents are coming with them. That is really scary, right? That's when I have the conversation and I go back a long time ago, but I said, I remember what I felt like in August of 1981 when I was going to college, right? Long before you were even thought of, right? A long time ago. But it's the same feeling, right? Am I going to be homesick? My mom was crying. My dad didn't know how he was going to afford college. How do you relate to those people? So I think the more you can share some of that personal aspect on whatever your subject is, you're right, it goes a long way towards making, number one, you more comfortable because you're talking about something you know about. I think where it gets really uncomfortable public speaking is somebody who's talking about something they know nothing about or have had no experience with. Because how can I really share that if I don't know what it actually feels like to be in that situation?
Yeah, so like that's why like it's also smart too to really have a plan going in, because it's very easy to start to deviate.
Oh, of course.
But like if there's a plan in place, it can really be helpful.
That's right. And that's also why you practice. So that you know, I want to make these 4 points. I have 10 minutes to do that. And then I think you have to make decisions. Do you want to use PowerPoint slides? Because some people find that helpful. I find PowerPoint slides for a large group of people really aren't the best way, right? I want them focused on what I'm saying, not reading what's behind me on the screen. But for a smaller presentation, or if you're conducting a meeting and you're presenting in a meeting, perhaps a PowerPoint is a way to help you kind of remember what you want to say, but also to give people something to focus on as well.
That's very true. And in the whole process of becoming an effective communicator, like where did you struggle personally?
So I have been a very talkative, boisterous since I was about 2 years old. So that all came pretty natural to me, right? I love to talk and I love to have conversations with people. I think sometimes where I really had to work hard early on was determining who the audience was that I was speaking to. So oftentimes in this role, but in my previous role as well, I'll talk to the media, right? So if we have a situation on campus, the media will come and, whether it's a year and a half ago, we were having delays in our COVID testing, right? The media came, wanted to know about that. I was talking to the media, but while I was talking to the media, I knew that the people that were going to be listening to this was the public. So what did I want the public to know about the situation? So I think sometimes early on, it was difficult for me to remember that I have to remember who I'm speaking to and what it is that they need to hear.
So what helped you then kind of be able to adapt much quicker and use the right voice?
I think I will say this, it was all about experience. You just have to keep doing it, right? So there were times 30 years ago when I would be doing an interview with the media on behalf of one of my clients, and I'm sure I looked like a deer in the headlights, right? But then the next time you get a little better of that, I would always look at what I had done, right? And I would ask people that I trusted to give me feedback, which I think is really important, that you're willing to take some feedback. And so I think experience and the ability to continue to do it, you learn and you learn more, and eventually you get really comfortable with it, and you hope you're pretty good at it.
That's great. And also too, sometimes in conversation settings, someone will probably say something that'll aggravate another party, and sometimes it's hard for people to kind of maintain their composure.
Sure.
So what can they do to combat that?
Well, so I think you're talking about two different things, right? So if we're just having a conversation, right? I think I always try to, and I think sometimes I don't do a great job of this one-on-one, is I try to listen and not, I think oftentimes one of my issues is I'm thinking about what I'm going to say while you're talking. And that's rude, right? I think that's partly comes from my experience with the media, because I'm trying to figure out what the next question is they're going to ask and that kind of thing. But in one-on-one settings, you need to listen, right? And you need to look at people. And then I think you have to, in those kind of settings, especially in settings where, the subject or the issue might be one that is hard, right? Or it's just difficult. It's a hard thing to talk about. I think you have to breathe. I think you have to take a deep breath before you respond, because I think sometimes we respond so quickly to something that we don't realize what we just said. And then I think you always have to speak in kindness, right? And I always tell people on a personal level, not necessarily when you're public speaking, but you don't know, I don't know how your morning went today. So something might have happened in your morning. You might have burnt your toast and not got your cereal, or your car broke down, and it's been a bad morning. And that's going to reflect in how you're reacting to me, but I don't know any of that. So I always say give people the benefit of the doubt, right? Be kind to them.
That's great. Yeah, like that's definitely a good perspective. Compassion.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Well, thanks, Marlon. Like you definitely like shared like a lot of great things.
I'm happy to be here.
Believe people can utilize.
Yeah, good. Congratulations on the podcast, on the video cast. I think it's great. I've been watching them.
Yeah, I like that.
Great. Thank you.
This was the end of the video. I really hope you guys got a lot of value from this. Marlon really shared a lot of great insight that I believe you guys can use when you're communicating. I create a lot of videos along these lines. A few of them are going to pop up here. You guys should definitely check them out. And I'll see you guys next video.